Hello everyone. Today I will be demonstrating how to create edged weapons. And for a little reference as to size and scale, I've made a little remaster of the Corn Champion. Some of my hardcore fans may recognize him. Now let's get down to business. Take out a cylinder, set it to stamped shape, clipped mirror, is a good setting to have, as well as grid snap. Although we may switch over to precise move in a little bit. Make a little half sphere, set a small amount of blend to it. This is for the hilt of our sword. I'm going for sort of a European broadsword, something in that vein. I must admit to being somewhat of a sword enthusiast. Perhaps not a buff, but an enthusiast. Any video game where they allow you to collect swords, I am usually gleefully employed. Let's see what we can do to cut this cylinder off, or I should say this cone. That should do nicely. Maybe make it a bit thinner. Add some details to the grip. We're going to use a filled donut for this part. Probably going to switch over to precise move as well. There we go. It should work nicely. Just slide these together. Sorry if this part is a bit tedious, but I want this sword to look nice for the demonstration, and it would need a proper hilt, even though the blades are probably the high point of this demonstration. Right now, we're designing the sword's pommel. It's that thing at the end that they use to whack people over the head. Those were simpler days. Let's try something a bit different. Just put it on blend. Now we're going to take a cylinder, stretch it out a bit, see what we can get. Maybe not that much, just a little bit less. Almost done with this hilt. This is for the cross guard, of course. Make it a bit longer, perhaps. We'll add these little decorative bits here. Just take the waxiness and metalness to about 100%. You end up with a nice shine that's not too shiny, but it's also metally. Works pretty good. Now we can begin with our blade. This particular method is my personal favorite for constructing bladed weapons. There's probably other ways you could do this, but I find this one to be very effective in making the sharp edges. Might want to set it on blend just a little bit, or no, on second thought, let's not. Just copy it out. Or cloning, as they call it. We're going to do the process again. with slightly smaller clones at the end to make the sword gradually shrink at its point. And just a little more for good measure. Might have to do this manually. This precise move is getting fiddly. But we might be able to do something about that. Well, it's going to have to be done manually. This is a little bit tough, but I guarantee the results are better than if you did it the other way. The main hurdle is making sure it's balanced with the rest of the weapon, and that it is properly joined. I think we've got it. I think the hilt maybe outmatches the blade a little bit, so we're going to shrink the hilt down a bit. Now we've got something a little bit better to work with. We may need to sharpen this blade just a little bit. Kind of, you know, make the edges more thin. Just putting a few cylinders on the edges should work nicely. Not really sure how many people use this method. Don't really see it widely used myself. Makes a nice edge though, and your sword's not too thin. Although I may do a little something else to kind of make it a bit more flat. clipped mirror is especially useful for these particular parts. Honestly, it might not look bad even without being flattened. But I want to try it out just to see what we end up with. That's pretty good. The only downside is we sort of did in our little groove. Let's try this again. We're going to delete this groove. No point in having that sculpt detail if it's just going to be erased. Got to come up with something a little bit better for this situation. There we go. Now for the groove, I'm going to employ a slightly different methodology to make this a little bit darker, to make the groove seem deeper. We could maybe pull this out just a little bit. There we go. That works just as well. Voila! We have a bladed weapon. Let's add some fine details to the hilt and other parts. Now I find if you want something to look rusty and worn, it's as easy as just selecting a darker color like off black, turning down the opacity, slight amount of soft blend. This is of course using the spray paint tool. Turn off clipped mirror and just go wild. Add a little bit of dirt and grime or rust, whatever you please. Maybe try a darker color. Looks pretty good. Just add a little bit to our sword here. Don't worry, it's not going to look this dirty. And there you have it. In general, it's a good idea to group these two together and make them non-collidable for any game you happen to be making. Now that I've done the broadsword, which does seem to be accurately sized, maybe a little bit bigger, but I think we were pretty much to scale on that one. It's a methodology for creating European edged weapons, aka the best ones. Now we're going to work on something a little different. For all you weebs in the audience, we're going to be making a katana. I think that's what they're called. curved hilt might be a bit of a difficulty, but we'll see. Let's just turn our cylinder around. I also intend to make a scimitar later, so stick around for that if you're a scimitar fan. See what we can get here with this slightly flattened hilt, I believe. Not an expert, but we can see. A little too curved. That seems to be about right. One more at the end here. Honestly, it's way simpler than the broadsword, which is a bit pleasant. Some of these bladed weapons can be very tricky, but not the katana. It's just kind of a log with a blade on it. See what we got here. I think we're already getting done with the blade. Of course, we have to add those little cuts, or I suppose they'd be gaps in the grip. I'm not going to go into super in-depth detail with this, just some nice quick cuts here. And that's about right. And we've already got a blade. Didn't take long, did it? Let's move on to this little detail here. Probably going to be drastically more simple, considering they only have one edge. Getting that slight, subtle curve, though, might be a bit tricky. Maybe. Let's flatten these spheres out a bit. That's a bit too curved right there. Let's start again. I may have to do this manually if it's going to give me trouble. Yes, I think this blade is going to be trickier. That wonky curve is difficult to get right. It's a little bumpy, but that won't be too much of a problem. We can fix that. Well, that's the rough idea. Oop. Careful now. I want to be a bit precise with this. Bit more blunt to that blade at the end. Doesn't stick out quite so far. It's a lot more accurate. That's about right. And we're going to be a bit cheaty with this other part. Going to fudge it a bit. I doubt anyone will notice. Take down the opacity. A little too big right there. I might just manually paint this with a sphere, not getting the effect I really want. This, of course, isn't very smooth and precise, but it gets the job done. And honestly, in an actual video game setting, who is going to be looking this closely at your sword? Might be nice for display to be a little bit more neat and tidy. But in most scenarios, people are too busy chopping up the ugly enemies to notice what the sword looks like. Doesn't hurt to be high quality or anything, just get your priorities straight. Yeah, the hilt doesn't look so good with full metalness, so I think I'll just put a tiny bit. In order to get that wrapped look, like it's got bindings or something on the hilt. Just going to use some low opacity paint. And of course we're going to add a little bit of signature dirtiness to make it look like it's been in use. Maybe not too much dirtiness on that. Don't want to overdo it. Let's take down the opacity more. Well, that's about right. There you have a katana. A little bit bigger, of course. Shrink it down to real size. It'd probably be somewhere like this. But I don't believe that's one of the longer ones. It's a short katana, so... And now for the scimitar. Let's see what we can do with this. Hopefully the scimitar will be just as easy as the katana. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. There's a method to my madness. But if you're someone who's been trying to make bladed weapons in Dreams, this must be a bit of a godsend. I know it was when I discovered this methodology. Don't know about the hilt. It's something I think I want to mess around with a bit. Might have made the hilt a little too thick. Luckily, this is something that can be rectified, I think. Let's move on to the blade. Except one little detail here. Don't know if that really improves it much, but it seems more authentic. Oh, I think we were facing our spear the wrong way. I always find it annoying when that happens. Let's see now. I think it's in position, roughly. Now the scimitar is another one of those weapons that has a curve to it, which might be difficult at first, but we'll see if we can pull it off. Excuse me. Now let's manually do the top, the tip. That's it, the tip. Am I not doing something right? Let's see. Oh, there we go. Not sure what was up there, but it's gone now. Really not a whole lot more I can think of. Seems to be almost done. Perhaps a little extra curve is in order. That's nice. Yes, that's pretty much the scimitar. Shrink down the hilt a bit, compensate for how thick it is. I like scimitars. They have a rather interesting design. Now let's just add a little bit of metalness. Make it non-collidable. Maybe I'll make the entire blade a similar color, sort of a gold or a coppery tone. Or not. I've changed my mind. Let's add some dirt. A little bit of soft blend. looking a lot nicer now that it's dirty, ironically. It's a bit strange, but... And there you have it. The more correct size, of course, would probably be more like this. But I showed you how to make one European broadsword, one katana, and one scimitar. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video and you like our content, don't forget to subscribe to Easy Dreams Cult, and give us a like and a comment, maybe, if you found this interesting. That's all for now. Goodbye.